Hey everybody, will this work here real quick before I sign off? In case there's any confusion, I think I used too many terms in the last video, in my last video entry. Let's just use the term new atheist as our main term and say that it includes worldviews like naturalism, reductionism, physicalism, materialism. It entails the rejection of mysticism. Okay, that's on one side. On the other side, you have mysticism, which includes theism, but not all forms of mysticism are theistic. Now, in drawing this distinction, I'm not trying to gloss over mistakes that theists sometimes make in their arguments, so I commit to being as objective as possible as I move forward. Okay, and another couple of things I think we should do as we move forward is to give a sort of meta view of how we believe we come to know truth. Also, I think we should talk at least a little bit about the distinction between principled and merely rhetorical forms of persuasion. Now, maybe there isn't a distinction, so that would be included in this sort of meta view that we give. In terms of how we come to know truth, the kind of things I have in mind here are is science the only way we come to know truth, or more strictly speaking, is it reason? Are we finding truth when we do math or read poetry? Can emotional or mystical or even religious experience yield truth as well? Okay, now I don't think this has to be too professional or technical of a process. All our T's don't have to be crossed or our I's dotted. But I think a rough sketch would help so that everything we say is true then traces back to this meta view that we've given. And all the ways in which we persuade one another then are in line with the ways we said are appropriate. Now, of course, if someone says there's no distinction between principled forms of persuasion and merely rhetorical forms of persuasion, then I would imagine I wouldn't be so interested in what they had to say. Okay, because then I would just suspect that they were just saying whatever they could, to persuade me. They would have to, for example, give me a, firm commitment that they would at least adopt my view of persuasion while they were arguing with me. Okay, so for example, if someone said, in terms of worldviews about what's true, if someone said science is the only way to know what's true, and then they asserted something that was non-scientific that they believed was true, then they would have a problem. Okay. Also, I'm reminded of I was trying to think about who it is. I think it was just some preacher on television. He was warning his parishioners away from the evils of logic and talked about how they cared so much about God's Word, and God's Word was really the best thing, and that logic competed with and distorted and caused people to move away from God's Word. Therefore, they should avoid logic. Now, the way I've just described it, of course, was not, he didn't use the word therefore. He just sort of rant and raved for, uh, for the entirety of his sermon about how man's logic was to be avoided. But he gave reasons. It was kind of funny. It laid out almost like a perfect syllogism. Okay, so that's just an example of someone who's very confused. He doesn't have a very clear sort of meta view combined with a substantive view. They don't fit together very well. His wires are all crossed up. And so I just want to avoid things like that as we move on. I don't expect everyone to post a video giving any sort of intricate meta view of the world, although that would be pretty cool and entertaining if I got everyone to do that. But at least what I'll do is propose a few worldviews that I think fit these meta views that fit the participants in this dispute, and then people can agree or disagree, and if they disagree, then we'll try to make adjustments and provide a workable framework going forward. Okay, thanks.